Hello. Good morning, Delta. How you doing? How is it going? Nice. Slow start. I got up at 5 a.m. Took the dogs for a walk, chilled out for a bit, got coffee, and then got late to the stream. Showed Ted my event storming stuff. He had no problem finding stuff I didn't follow in the method. Well, he's got experience of that, right? He's done event storming. So I'm just making sure. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. Guess I like sleeping in. Yeah. Um, I think one of the biggest values Agile consultants who do TED bring is they can look into things in depth, whereas I just don't have the time to do that. Yeah, I mean, it is, I would say it is worth, people like Ted, made a career on doing that analysis part. Um, like Uncle Bob, those sorts of people are extremely good at picking out the details. Um, but you can't always get a consultant in, right? So I think, again, pragmatism. I think you did a great job with the event storming stuff, and it gets enough details to find out the gaps later. Oftentimes, we build the software and we don't realize the gaps until we we don't realize a lot of the gaps, and yeah, move it into Miro. So I actually do the sticker board stuff, the post-it notes and stuff. Um, I mean, again, you know, even attempting to analyze is is a good step, right? He was watching Berlin. He's talking. He also said online it should be very guided activity. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that process benefits from collaboration a lot more than solo. But yeah, yeah. Well, the problem with things like Zoom and stuff is even as you are collaborating, it's not. I mean, it's kind of asynchronous to a point, but you can't see when someone wants to talk, or it, it, it's more disconnected. Um, um, yeah, I'm gonna worry about this. So the guy replied on the ocelot thing, and he's waiting for more details, but I need to collect that detail, right? So yeah. Multiple channels of communication is much more difficult, and you have to be a lot more careful when you do talk as a result, I think. Yeah, the one thing that I do definitely notice about um, the online world, like working remotely and doing everything online, is there's definitely the disconnect is um, having worked remotely for so long now. There's a kind of how do I put it? I'm struggling with how I phrase this one, but it's, you don't build the relationships you do when you're in person, and that collaboration aspect can't be evolved in the same way. You can still combine effort, but it's, I think in person has definite benefits to it, and especially with something like the event storming exercise, where you realistically are sticking post-its to a wall. You're kind of just throwing things out there, and it's more, it can be more real time and collaborative. Whereas with a Miro board or something like that, it's, yes, it can be collaborative, but it's not as fun. And it's a huge difference between people I pair with and those I haven't. Yeah, I mean, after a while of pairing as well, you also kind of gather an understanding for each other's abilities, etc. So it does, it does help. All these things I need to look through. Okay, so let's compare and progress. So after stream yesterday, I tinkered a little bit more. I got this in a decent enough place where I'm happy that it's kind of working. I'm not sure how viable the module-if dialog is in terms of, I assume it was, which one was it? Module-if there. I've heard it be interpreted as build code well, not bad. Because on those 4 quadrants, there's only really one good quadrant. How's that going then? Oh, there you go. Okay, so it's log out. I mean, in general, just, I was considering game dev the other day, on the build code well aspect, and I kind of thought through it, and I think game dev is the world, unless you're building an engine or you're building something that you're going to build off of, game dev is not often a case of revisiting the code. So throwing things into game dev is something that's going to hurt very much if I don't get the chance to go back and refactor things, unorganize things. And I think it's an acceptable practice in game dev because it's just, you've got to get stuff done. There is no messing around trying to find the most refined solution, because the most refined solution might be more expensive. It might be more complicated. It might slow down a frame or something. So you've got to just worry about getting the job done and getting it done as quickly as possible. So as you know, I can definitely see how that doesn't, game dev, they're under such intense pressure to produce a game in a short period of time with a small amount of money. It's cash flow problems in my mind. Yeah. But it's the ultimate waterfall development, right? You see all these people making games on Twitch, and the more organized people, the slower paced people, the people that are kind of going through the motions of building the game and hoping that what they make is going to be successful. Some people achieve it, some people don't. But yeah, but game dev is kind of the ultimate waterfall development, and going to build something, hope when you come out, someone wants it. Yeah. So I was kind of reflecting on the whole, the practices I use, the things I do, and why I should just discard them when it comes to the game dev thing and not worry about refined solutions, not worry about trying to find optimal design, just worry about getting the job done and moving forward and not panicking about, I'll learn some techniques along the way, but yeah, I can discard that. So like microservice and monolith equals good, big ball of mud, and distributed monolith equals bad. I mean, maybe what you're discussing is a technique. I think the more we talk about this stuff, the more we see the opinions and stuff, it's just accept where you are and build on those skills. But I think that's the case of everything, right? You can't start at the end. You have to begin, and you have to grow, and expecting to get somewhere you're not will frustrate you more. So don't try. If I was trying to give this advice, I would say don't try and be that veteran developer. Don't try and be, you don't start a game and think, oh, I'm going to create Starfield, or I'm going to create, the next Grand Theft Auto, right? You might want to go there, but you can't get there immediately. It's going to take a while if you're just beginning on that journey. I think the same is true of all software. It's embrace the learning and grow and understand where you're growing rather than worrying about being somewhere you're not. And again, I think we just need a little bit more pragmatism in the way we do things instead of, yeah. So we'll see. So yesterday after stream, I added in this. So now that it shows the title again. This isn't perfect. It's not the way I want it ultimately, but it does kind of demonstrate the panel, and you can collapse the panel now. So yeah. So I got that working after stream. So now the panel collapses, the title's up there. Ultimately, what I want to do is put some iconography up here so that I can go and expand out, or I can do share, etc. But I tested everything was working yesterday, and it seems to be fine. Been thinking about how do you introduce Slack into an Agile process, and what that has to do with making sure you stick to some overall goal plan. Slack is in the messaging, or Slack is in lessening the rigidity of the process. So I will say that the pattern that my current employer has kind of laid out is kind of a 9-week release cycle. And what they do is they have a 2-week planning phase, and then 3 2-week sprints, and then it's 9 weeks. It's like there's a planning and Slack phase, like for catching up on things, verifying things, etc. Then a 3 sprint sessions of 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks of regression and preparation for release. That could be used, Slack is an extra time that could be used for things like upgrading a NuGet package. The amount of times I've argued with a Scrum Master that software isn't delivered to customers bi-weekly or once, twice a week. It's bad enough misconception I dislike sprints. Aligning the sprint with a release schedule is hard because you've got QA and everything in there. I understand the whole daily release thing. I understand the pushing changes quickly to production. I understand the desire to do that. I just don't think that most organizations are actually equipped to handle that process. And it requires ground up structuring of the software, right? If I can make a change, push it through, have it verified through all sorts of um, regression testing and automated testing, and then have it staged and tested manually, and then have it triggered as a release, I'm okay with that. But the real, like you said, the large feature sets don't get delivered in 2 weeks. They require much more attention. And that's why merging QA in as a concept into a sprint is a terrible idea. I honestly think QA should have their own schedule. QA should be involved in the development. QA should be sat with developers, virtually or physically, talking about the features. As the developers are developing, the QA should be involved. They should see screen changes. They should see workflow changes. They should understand the implication of any code changes and be able to build and prepare automated testing around those things. But I think QA should be off schedule. So again, for this, one of the concepts I have is that a story can move between teams in phases, right? So when you get to a story, it might be on my team now, but then it might transition to QA. So if you think about it from a visibility perspective, it's not we don't have to have a QA swim lane if QA now picks it up and is working on it. So we know that it's been promoted. The events have notified people that an item has been completed in development, but is now in QA. So that's one of the things I would do want to experiment with when I get to that point, is kind of figuring out how to break those things out. Because again, you're not going to deliver a large feature in 2 weeks, because it basically gives you a couple of days of development at the beginning of the sprint to complete the large feature, test it yourself, and then hand it over to a QA so they can go into any form of regression testing. And, depending on the size of your application, that's days worth of testing. Like right now, a regression test against this, right? Can I log in? Can I log out? Can I create a planning item? Can I create a project? Right? I haven't even tested this part yet. I haven't even touched this part yet visually, right? So this should fail a regression test straight away, because once I'd upgraded to Prime NG, right? The reason I dislike sprints for this reason is I think they aid in the misconception, which worsens, which is ultimately an argument. What is ultimately an argument? Since the other side of the argument typically don't code. Yeah. But again, the sprint itself, if you think about it from the developer perspective, is kind of it's a shared agreement on the amount of time you'll do work in that you can size everything up against, right? So the sprint itself, I see why in this concept, in this instance, why you would believe that sprints are bad. But, as developers, I'm not holding myself accountable to timelines, right? And look at the way this is going. I've refactored this 2 or 3 times. I've tinkered with this a lot. I've introduced new concepts. I've tested things. Now, for me, that's good, because I've built the software that I want to build. I'm in a place where I really am happy with the overall structure of this application. But if I had forced myself into timelines, would it look like that? Maybe not. But we have to have something we kind of agree on as a useful window. It's a useful window to do a retrospective on, is where I think the value is. We have to, but that timeline gives us some focus and some goals as well. I think when it, again, as with everything that I'm talking about, when it gets abused by the business aspect of it, or misunderstood, I think that's where the challenges come from, because it's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks to develop the code, essentially. If you're trying to put QA in there, you've got 6 days to develop the code, because you have to give QA 4 days at least of the sprint, right? If your planning is slightly off so that you're not ready day one to go, you're losing time, and every second counts, and that shouldn't be on the team to worry about, right? If the planning isn't ready by the time you start the sprint, then that's a big problem, right? So, and that's again why this falls down when you're trying to do a release on it. You'll often miss releases, and I think it's why the company I work for has gone to kind of a 9-week release cycle, is so that they can increase the quality, still get a good chunk of work in there, but also provide enough time front and back of that process to understand what's coming in there. 3 days for UX, 3 days for dev, 2 days for review, 5 days for QA bug fixes. All of that is way too squashed. Yeah, depending on how you build it out. It's, but again, but that's why I'm saying I think that the 2 weeks should be for dev. Whatever dev tasks there are, the sprint should be for the developers, and it should be the developers agree. Okay, whether you point or whether you time estimate, right? You say, okay, we can take this number of stories in this sprint, and that's your agreed goal, and the developers do what they can to do that, right? If the developers are overly ambitious, it's on them to fit it in with those 2 weeks, right? So that's where crunch comes in, right? The developers can choose when they crunch. So I've had times where I've said to my team, hey, look, we have an option. We can either deliver a subpar product right now, or we can try and push through and do a little bit extra to get this over the line, and then give ourselves some time later on. But the team has to agree, right? I'm not demanding that people bust the butts to try and get stuff done and rush it through. But we have to put the extra hours in because we've slacked off elsewhere. Yeah, so 2 weeks for UX, 2 weeks for a dev review, QA afterwards. I've also heard, why is QA an afterthought? And I think I agree with the viewpoint. QA should not be an afterthought. QA should be a fundamental part of the process. They should be involved in the discussions on planning. They should be involved in the discussion of design. Even the even if they don't care about the development specifically, that more assumptions about the software will come out there, more problems with the software. They can ask pointed questions. They should be involved all along. I just don't think they should be involved from a time estimate point of the work that needs to be done, right? So in the sprint, their time should not be accounted for in the same sprint as the developers. Shouldn't the feature come out good enough? They are not a primary concern. If your software is so good that QA is kind of an afterthought, then they get an easy job. But they should always be there to validate, because there's oftentimes developers will completely miss scenarios. So no matter how good the software is, there's a scenario that's missed that the QA has thought of, has tested, has a regression test for potentially, and the developer just doesn't realize. So I think, and it's so easy to change some code and have knock-on effects that we don't see because we're so macro focused at the time. I think it's a harder job. They have to find that one edge case. I think in general, a team is the product, the developers, the QA, and even the sales team, depending on the product, right? I think a good team is one that can communicate and work together, and follow that through. But I do think that a sprint should be about the developers. You could have sprints for QA, absolutely. They could overlap. They could intersect. They could all sorts. But I think they have their own workload that work can transition into them. And if they have no work to do, then it's visible, right? When the ticket is in UX, it's also in dev. When the ticket is in review, it's also in dev. There's one concept I've actually I made a lot of notes on is kind of this idea of having a ticket visible in different boards and knowing which group it's currently in. That's going to be a challenge to achieve. So if it's in pending or some swim lane, so it's not done. So again, each team, each company has different definitions of those swim lanes as well, which is harder. But ultimately, there's kind of it's done with dev. It might still be visible on the dev board, but if it's in QA, it might be in ready for QA, right? So it might be in the starting swim lane for QA. Depending on how you do UX. So for me, UX is done ahead of time. So UX is ready for when you build the software, not as you build the software. If there's refinements to make it, that's kind of an on-the-fly thing. And I think that works better from an agility perspective. Yeah. Again, I think UX work should be tracked, right? If there's a piece of work that needs to be done. So let's say I create a story and it needs extra UX, because it hasn't been done in the planning item, right? So it's not been done at this phase. It got deferred, and we've got it actually in the sprint boards. I think it stays in the backlog of the developers as it's being worked on for UX. If it's in flight like that, then it's all in the development code, right? Because the conversation is with UX, but it's not actually. Maybe not. Maybe it is in UX at the same time. In that case, if it's a back and forth, most UX should be handled, and once you've got the structure of the application down, there should be very little variance there. But there's a difference in, is the widget difficult to code, right? If it's a new widget, you could argue that should be spiked. So in which case, that's go off, try and code the widget, identify the challenges, highlight them and document them so UX can take them into account, right? If it's you put this button here in the UX, and that's also another, like with Figma, you can pull in the tool set, right? So one of the options I have being that I'm using the PrimeNG stuff is if I go, and I apologize for this because PrimeNG always goes into light mode straight away. It never does dark mode. If I go into Figma UI kit, right? It's expensive, but what I could do is I could essentially pull in the UI kit for this into Figma and build out my UIs in here, right? And this is what OneLine does, right? OneLine builds. Really, you can't even remember that. OneLine builds all his UI in Figma, all the variations, etc., and then builds it out. So if you've done that, then is there much involved in you doing the coding part? That will go better than someone in UX building a widget and not fully understanding the coding portion. Exactly, because the control is there, therefore you can do what they're suggesting. This is tempting to get, because then I could actually try and lay this out as I've got it with the controls I have and see if it's possible to do the things that I've done already. And then if I can do that, then I can build extra UX stuff. I mean, you will produce worse designs, but they will work, be easy to code every time than UX. Yeah, and like I've said many times, right, ultimately what I want to do is build this application in such a way that, and I've already kind of proved it because I swapped out the UX, but build it and then let someone who is a specialist at it and see how they would go about it and try and find that person. I might have to save my pennies up for that one, though. There's actually one guy that I used to work with. His stuff is fantastic, but he would be so expensive, it's not even funny. And I'm not asking someone to do it for free just because I know them. So the reason I think that back and forth should exist is a disparity in skills, I guess is my argument. If you've got UX that's producing made up UI stuff, you're going to likely end up with more back and forth. But that is to me, that is a failing of planning, because it means that you have not identified that control needs development, and that you should spike the development of that, or should actually have you may end up with a story for doing the development, but it should be highlighted and not part of a larger story that you need to develop the control first, because you don't think the abilities of it are possible. Because sometimes what that might be is that the UI UX says, okay, hold on, I've got a simpler version in mind, let me put that in, and we'll do it that way to get it working and to get the functionality in there, and then we can spike that later. So yeah. Anyway, so that's Lucid. I introduced Lucid Angular, so Lucid icons. It's a big icon set. But it was Andreas popped it into one line stream yesterday, and it had the icons I needed, so I included that, even though there are icons inside of Prime. I've got Prime icons installed. I might want to clean that up afterwards. For a while we tracked QA tickets completely separate from dev tickets rather than combine the concerns, which I think is what you're getting at. Yeah. I understand that an integrated team has integrated work, and the problem is that QA might be backed up. QA might be working on stories that were in last sprint. So should a story that's development complete get carried over, right? Because again, from a numbers perspective, the development was completed, essentially, unless you count QA as part of completed. I get that argument. But to the management, it always looks like you missed a sprint, but it could be just heavy testing is required. So if you're not going to allow for the time in the sprint to do the QA properly, then you're going to often miss a sprint, and it's just not going to measure right. So yeah. Metrolites, welcome in. Does this not just create more headaches for your team? Granularity of tickets like this just cause very small gaps to appear in the workflow, which wouldn't come with an integrated ticket. I think that's I think we're kind of going back and forth a little bit. So an integrated ticket comes with the challenge of, so if it has a QA in the sprint and you have the story to do, you get the development done, and then it goes to QA, you actually have only a few days of development time in your sprint, right? And if everything gets backed up behind QA, you're going to miss a sprint, and those points are going to look like your development's not getting done overall. I suppose it comes down to whether your organization is willing to accept that, but I think it doesn't measure the productivity of the developers versus like a ticket going through dev and not getting picked up QA. User granularity could be a bit, that implies not enough detail. Maybe breaking down a task into too many tickets. Provide collapse button for detail panel. Rough version. If the processes are in place are bad enough and it's not typical at all, you cannot hide the fact the feature could take months. This is taking way longer. I got to figure out how to clean this cache out or something. I don't know, and it's useful to consider this, right? Because, especially considering what I'm building. Like on one hand, I definitely believe that QA, if you put QA effort into a sprint, you should halve the development that gets done in a sprint, right? Because you need to make sure you've got enough QA time. Tracking your QA backlog is impossible if you merge the two, because it all looks like development backlog because it's all one team. It's therefore there to everyone to see, oh, this is sat awaiting QA, or this is sat in progress, or whatever, depending on what swim lanes you use, etc. QA might be struggling to test something. They might just have a lot of testing to do. They might have a lot of regression to do on a single story, and it backs them up. On a broader note, does this not lead to practices associated with Agile hell and just general descent into process for the sake of process? That's how most people get frustrated with the Agile process. Yeah. People over process, not the absence. I think QA should be involved. So maybe what I'm kind of arguing for is not just a board associated with a team. A team is a team, whether you split them into one board or multiple, and have more granularity at the, to reuse that word, at the reporting by showing the differences between what's actually in QA versus what's not. I found in better orgs is more process, not less, which is weird, but they aren't necessarily clearly defined in butts and butts of documentation. I don't think that's necessarily. I think as companies grow, they try and apply process, and sometimes they understand it and sometimes they don't. If you've got lucky and you've had a load of people that have been very good in the Agile process, I can imagine that it's much smoother. But and it comes down to, right, all of these tools are reporting tools. None of them are work tools, right? Because realistically, all you need is something telling you what you need to do. And from a development perspective, that's what you need to do, right? All the process comes in. Now, how do you take that thing, verify it, and get it to a customer? But then from the tooling perspective here, most of it is, where is it? Why hasn't it been delivered yet? When does a customer get it? It's then that's very clear about it comes from the retros. You can iron out how you work and define more clear in a good team, in a team that's willing to reflect. Agree, I've been on and seen teams blow Agile completely to the wind, and it's been very successful, but bearing in mind the tech and UCD teams were extremely competent. And again, the team makeup as well. Not just about the competency, but about their general ability to meld. If you were talking about a team as everybody involved, right, from planning through development to QA through deployment stuff, so you got DevOpsy people in there. If that team can communicate really well and understands their roles effectively, then things can move very, very cleanly. Processes break down, from my experience anyway, processes generally break down when we start to build silos, when we start to build them versus us, when that's not my job. I'm not saying you should go and pick up QA, but understanding how QA works and what they do and what they need will help you discuss with them. And you should integrate. It shouldn't be a wall that you throw stuff over, right? people are very common. I also think good Agile looks more like chaos than something organized. Do you hand off between UX and dev? I think that should be fairly melded rather than a strict handoff. That's something we develop with feedback. Yeah, I feel that if you feel like it's being thrown over a wall, you're probably doing it wrong. Understanding what people do and how they do it as a group, I think, is helpful. But you know, we all have our different experiences. We all different, learnings, and again, in a team, that's really useful when you can take the experiences that people have had. The problem is when you just say, "Oh, I don't like that," because whether you like Agile as a concept or not, can you work effectively with the process to get software delivered? And that's ultimately what we all care about, right? Well, it's what I care about. If I can deliver software well and I know where the problems are and I can fix the problems quickly, I don't actually care about all the process. I think there's a big disparity between the understanding of the product from the UCD team and the tech team on my project. That's a problem, yeah. But I think that mainly stems from the use of prototypes alongside the live product, and it creates two sources of truth. User-centered design team. We're questioning if prototypes should exist. Looking while I get ready for the day, but I was figuring out file upload all day yesterday, so I'm invested here. Hi, Module, how you doing? I'll get to the file upload in a minute. that's for certain. That's kind of my process, but this conversation has been more engaging. Should actually be building console applications that later built into websites. That shouldn't. Why are you always building something twice? Because the same feedback. SketchUp in Figma, user research, build it. Build the real thing. I think a full-blown prototype that I don't think you should invest in. Oh, hold on. Let me clarify. Prototypes. Prototypes built by auth and file upload today's task for me. Nice. Let's go back here. Create a pull request. Development, yeah. Side panel. Pull requests on this are just a formality. They're not really. Everything's tested. Everything's running. I think hexagonal plus console application plus event storming is that enough of the hard edges as possible, I think, to not have to build a bunch of prototypes to get the feedback. Maybe I'm wrong. Learnings of what customer actually wants is the kind of value at the start. Hi, Shai. How are you today? It's been a while. I hope you're well, though. Okay. Nope. Nope. Shai's in Europe, I believe. So in this, yeah, I think so. In this, I upgraded Angular to Angular 18. I moved a lot of components around to try and get this UI in place. So I'm not going to review everything on stream. I created the tracked entity response. I created a lot of NuGet packages to keep up to date with that. We overhauled the GraphQL piece. Maybe. We completely overhauled the GraphQL piece to use views, and yeah, I just failed a PR because I just screwed something up. Doing that, well, a little tired. Gonna sleep a bit after I brought my boyfriend to work a little bit later on. Okay. Well, may you get rest. I'm missing something here. So what I've been doing, this is going to be funny because I'm going to have a folder called view with a folder called views. What I've been doing is scripting out the database as I go. I'm not a big fan of migrations, so yeah. Generate DDL to clipboard. We'll create this. Add file 000. Forgot the associated projects view.sql. Add. Yeah, in terms of prototypes, I think there's some value in getting something in front of people first. I do like the idea of letting customers see what you're planning before you actually do it, because I think there is a benefit in having some feedback if a customer understands where the data is. Because again, when we're developing the application, I think this is what you kind of talking about, Metro, in terms of there's a disconnect between the understanding of the product, right? Developers often don't understand the product from the customer's perspective. They understand it from the developer's perspective. And it's why things like ubiquitous language and, those domain concepts are very useful, because it helps to describe the system in the terms that are used by the company so that people can kind of get on the same page. And that's often lost. We come up with crazy terms for things, or we kind of, design workflows that do things but don't necessarily represent exactly what's done, but it's helpful for us as developers. So I think that does cause a disconnect. Projects view to projects view.sql. Maybe some people are trying to be social, programming level, but actually it's just shy. Even with all those tools, sales business analysts often understand the customer way better than a junior. Not necessarily, you'd be surprised. I'm not going to stay too long. I'm also wanted to come say hi since it's been a while. Shai, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And yeah, Shai does stream. Streams some gaming, some development, getting more and more confident with the development parts, and growing as we all should. So I do recommend going and following Shai. Great situations, the devs might be talking to a customer once a week or something, not every day forever. Devs talking to customers is dangerous. That's a very dangerous thing to do sometimes. I think content choices on my team are often made based upon the prototype rather than the live product, where seemingly small changes require remediation of a lot of technical debt or require new patterns to be developed. Okay, developing off of imaginary stuff that doesn't actually align to the real thing, that's a challenge. Yeah, that I can definitely see as a challenge. So I'm doing it. I forgot to add these scripts. I was hoping to get this done before the stream, so I do apologize. My intention is to go onto the file upload very shortly. It's just a conversation plus not doing this. And I don't want to leave this out because it's kind of important. 004 users view. I'm just confirming there. New products or existing products. I mean, talking to the customers. developers talking to customers can be a dangerous thing, because it can mean the developers get some insight that the product team doesn't get. And I get the whole challenge of passing down requirements often means to miss requirements. Going to try and stream again today so I can make progress on the game jam. Really want to start and mess when I'm live, so hopefully OBS won't be so difficult tonight. Here's hoping. Yeah, the considering I've been doing the game stuff on Mondays and Tuesdays, I have been considering, I could do a game jam. That would force me to kind of work for something. But being that I'm only streaming 2 days a week on games, I think that might make a mess. So maybe in the future I'll do a game jam. But that's awesome that you take up another game jam. The last one was really fun. I meant with the prototype discussion, I just don't understand the median user very well. Yeah, gotcha. I mean, our client runs such an iterative product, it's rarely ever a new product. The median. Yeah, the sun at 8 o'clock. I have blinds, and the sun comes through the gaps in the blinds, so I have to move to the other side. So, thank you. Added scripts for creating views. Who knew I use views to create views for my view? Push that and then get this merged, and then I can get finally onto the file upload. So my intention for file upload is, what I want to do is I want to get a file upload working that will upload to my local machine, and then create an interface to provide, ultimately I want to test AWS or Azure and be able to swap out the provider and have that completely transparent. So I'm going to upload to the server and then upload to the thing. I'm not going to directly link the credentials off of the client. Okay, just thought I'd let you know, top line. So yeah, it happens every morning, and I have actually got the camera tilted slightly anyway, but I forget, and then I roll over to that side anyway because the mat's uneven. We just given new markets, which really just came out of, oh hey, I noticed we do X, why don't we do Y also, which is also the same, almost the same thing. It's still adjacencies concept. The last place I worked, from almost day one of working there, I suggested that they get a user voice or something like that up and running so customers could tell them what they want. And it was ignored, and no one listened, and I was there 8 years. How are the dogs doing, by the way? The dogs are doing great. They're having a great summer. They get to go and run around in the yard every day and watch us swim in the pool. And they are full of energy. And they like chewing things. So yeah, I suggested using user voice very early on because I'd used it, or I'd seen it used at my previous employer, and they'd actually got a lot of value from it. But they never picked it up. So fast forward, I was talking to my friend the other week, and he was saying that they delivered some features that we were working on for over a year before I left. They delivered the features, and in a year they haven't been used, and that is a very demoralizing. Thank you for the look, Shy. I appreciate that. Demoralizing thing when you get it that wrong. Does that pick up added script screen views? Okay, so let's have a look at this. Yeah, there's a view scripts. Is that the side effect of no customer work? It's the side effect of assuming you know what the customer wants without actually asking the customer and getting feedback on what you do already. Right. I think it's very important to understand, once you've delivered a product, like, because again, right, this is only in my head, right? No one else has touched this. No one else has seen this. I stream it so that people can see it and people can see the product development, but they don't necessarily have, you can't visualize how it works, right? Or how it's going to work. So I'm just building it the way I think it should be built. At some point, I'm going to have to put it out there and say, what do you think? Right? And that's an important step. And that's why prototypes I get why you might want to do prototypes. It's important to development update. I think dog fooding is your easiest path to fit. For me, yes. But again, even then, my development scenario isn't the same as the development scenario I'm aiming to help with, right? Because I'm a solo dev. So my world is not planning. My world is not ticketing. My world is stories and working on actual features. So I'm going to have to learn them and get feedback from people as best I can. So for anyone new to the stream, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you want to know more or see more, let me know. There's quite a lot to show at this point. There's a lot of different pieces. I gotta head to work. Good luck. Delta, have a great day. Thank you as always for the engaging conversation. I really do enjoy these talks in the morning. It's good to have this conversation. Wow, did I really leave 2 branches sat here? Oh, been slacking. I think my question boils down to, is there actual discernible value gain in developing a fully fledged prototype over a Figma sketch when compared against the effort required? I think a prototype does give you the chance to get interaction if the customer's the one interacting with the prototype and you're able to effectively record their usage of it. So I think there could be value. If you give them a screen, a mock-up, they can criticize things, but you have to explain all the inner workings. Whereas a prototype might actually give them some visibility into how it should work. But if the prototype is far off, well, I assume in this case you're building out a screen and prototyping that screen that might be a replacement or an addition to an existing system, and then asking them to go off and just tinker with that prototype and see. So again, if the customer's doing it, how effectively you record the feedback is going to measure how useful that prototype is, and what your cycle looks like. If it's, oh, they don't like this, and this, let's go and build another prototype. And if it's developers building the prototypes, that's a lot of time sunk. Whereas you could have just developed a screen and done an A/B test, and put it in production as an A/B test and given them, and then put some metrics in. Oh, okay, how long has it taken them to find this button? How many times are they clicking on this part of the screen? Is their mouse hovering for a long time? Those tools are possible, right? So an A/B test might be more of an effective strategy than having a full prototype, because then you could play with the different designs. Build a small feature, add observability, check for usage. Yeah. We use, can't remember the name of the tool, but our company uses a tool, and basically every now and then the QAs are asked to go and sit and review through the playback. So I think we turn it on randomly for customers, and they're asked to go and review that, and I think it gives them hot spots. It gives them, mouse movement, clicks, all those sorts of things. Hi, Jeffin. How you doing? How you doing today? There you I built a feature that took quite a while. We have observability on it, and that was very helpful to see the value feedback, the lack of value in the feature. I think we use Optimizely. Yeah, I think if developers are building your prototypes, I think there's probably definitely more value in having the A/B style testing than there is prototyping. Okay, so all right, later. Take care, Dota. Have a great day. Yeah, again, if anyone needs to stream, you're more than welcome to ask. Hey, good morning, Dan. How are you doing? So one of the things I've been using to try and get some ideas here is mobbing, to try and see about different applications. Rike is probably the newest one added that is of interest to me, because I want to understand how the workflows go, etc. I'm not trying to copy, I'm just trying to understand how people lay these applications out and if there's a commonality or a flexibility. Temtic, good day, how are you doing? So, file upload. So I got 50 minutes left, or just over 50 minutes of the stream left. So I don't think I'm going to achieve file upload today, but at least I'm going to talk about it. So let's get the app up and running, and I'll talking about prototyping. So I'm not going through the extent of building out complicated screens right now. I'm not trying to refine the UI UX experience because I think it's something that's a little bit beyond me. What I'm trying to do is build it good enough and build it to a point where I'm comfortable that I can change it later. Good, and yourself? I'm not bad. It's Thursday. We're almost there. I had yesterday off, and it's back to work today. Doing great. I'll stream tonight. I really need to get the audio working properly on my game. Nice. You normally stream at times so in the mornings I tend to drop in and then lurk a little bit on your stream, but in the evenings you tend to stream right as I'm leaving the house and doing karate and stuff, so that's why I don't appear in the evenings. But yeah, Dan is working on his first game and it's looking amazing, quite thought-provoking. Yeah, I would highly recommend checking out Dan. I make your productivity. My refactoring is almost fully done. Nice, Tantic. I hope that the changes have felt positive and you've really learned along that way. I'm actually surprised I don't have any circular DI. Well, circular. I was trying to write this to you the other day in the chat. If you've got circular DI, what you've got is there's one of those classes doing too much. No, we got to get to file upload today. I am trying, Mojo. I am trying. I promise. Okay, so why would I file upload? Why would I upload a file? So when I'm doing planning items, when we're talking about prototypes and whatnot, I do want the ability to add uploads, add images, etc. Ultimately, I will allow requirements to have attachments, but right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a panel in here for upload for attachments, and we're going to put a file upload button in similar to this. I'm going to try and put a file dialog in. I'm going to try and do it as quickly as possible because obviously the upload part is the more important part, right? So I'm not going to worry about the UI first. I'm going to worry about the server side first. And this is where this is going to get a bit challenging because I haven't done this in a long time. So my intention is I'm going to take the file, I'm going to upload a file to the server. I'm then going to connect that to a provider, right? The benefit there is what I could do is I could actually have a per customer provider, so the customer could provide their own AWS account or their own, depending on how I set it up, or their own Azure storage account, and it would upload to their storage. I think that's a good way of doing that. I was afraid I split so much that it ends up calling each other, but apparently because it's split up that much, it does not have circularity. Right. So again, if you got circular DI, you normally have a class that's doing too much, and you can break that out anyway. Because if that class has a dependency on another class that has a dependency on that class, you've probably got that sort of problem. Okay, so first thing, I'm using fast endpoints, so I want to go and look at fast endpoints because I want to see if there's any pieces for file uploads. File handling. Oh look, handling file uploads. This might be kind of simple. Okay, so the following example relays about the image data uploaded to the endpoint in order to demonstrate both receiving and sending of file data. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually send no content async. Okay, that's cool. Handling large file uploads. In ASP.NET, accessing iForm file collection or iForm file causes a complete uploaded file to be read from the request stream and buffered to either memory or disk. You can avoid this buffering and reduce server resource utilization by manually reading the multi-part file sections with a combination of allow file uploads and form file sections. Okay, we're going to start with the basics, right? We're going to start with a basic file upload. Nice. So fast endpoints by default denies file uploads or any attempt to file upload. So let's go here. So we're going to create. So Mojo, is there anything specifically you're looking for, or just how I'm going to approach this? Let me. The blob connection was where I was stricken specifically. Okay. So actually connecting to. Sorry, I'm looking for my issue boards. Yeah, blew past that one. Done. New sprint. Get file uploads. 20th of June to the 6th of July. There we go. Great. It's also 10 PM. Oh, the file upload is nice. Done it a few times myself. I'll add content later so I can get on with the stream part of it. Okay, so T79 feature T79 file upload to server. So you're focused on Azure, right, Mojo? Yeah, blobs. I'm essentially trying to integrate Excel for the web into the browser. I have to implement auth and the file storage just to test it. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, I get the file uploaded, which should only take a few minutes, and then we'll pivot and look at Azure. So ultimately, what I'm thinking is, because again, I think uploading to my server, this can create problems in terms of storage, obviously, because you've got to clean out the temporary files. Because what happens is when you do the file upload, it gets stored in temp files, and then I'm going to forward it on. Send stream, it might, yeah, it is in files. So I'm going to have to make sure I clean things up. But what my goal will be is to handle this, store it as a temporary file, because again, this is all in the endpoint. I don't want to handle this in an endpoint. I want to handle this as a file stream in a handler so I can manage that. And in the handler, what I'll do is I'll look up the tenant and identify the storage method and then connect to their storage. And so I'm abstracting that. So I'll inject a storage provider and use that to save the file. That's my thought so far. As I've not done this in a long time, I may end up with a shorter path that I then abstract later once I've got a AWS connection in there. Okay, so upload server. So interesting. We're in planning. So this is all planning domain. I have thought about attachments being separate as a service because attachments, but attachments are attached to a planning item. So to generalize attachments, what I could do, good morning, Mr. Ranhorn, is I could upload the file to an attachments component, hand back an identifier, and then associate an attachment with an item in planning. I think that's a bit too general at this point, and I don't know if I actually need that, because right now the attachment is pretty much hand in hand with the planning item. So I think that would be a little bit too much of a stretch. So we're going to do attachments in here. Not unit testing endpoints, not even getting to that. This is a post. And I'm going to bring this over to the other screen now so that I don't keep flicking back and forth. Let's start running. So it's an endpoint, and it's going to be planning attachment. Okay, attachment here is going to be public class attachment. I was surprised if Microsoft Docs are just old. I was using a lot of Azure guides, but the packages didn't have add Azure SQL. It sounds like .NET 8 changed an awful lot. I haven't seen any major changes there, but I haven't touched that in .NET 8 specifically. And Microsoft Docs being old, absolutely. I can believe that. So in here, the attachment is going to have public GUID planning item identifier. File can be automatically bound to request by simply adding an iForm file property with a matching name. Public list. Let's just go all in on that. No, that just needs to be enumerable as well. Add as your client. Yeah, Microsoft documentation being out of date, I can definitely see. What? What is that if not a fast endpoint? Okay. I've got so much more complicated with Blazor, and there are 5 different types of interactivity. It's so annoying to create a new application now. Huh. Have I just dodged the complexity there because I'm using Auth0? Or have I got some pain coming down the line? Okay. I dodged it. Phew. Okay, so this is going to be a post to that's quite the autofill. Well, maybe. Are you using any .NET Interactive? Well, I'm not using Blazor, so not in this anyway. And with Water Drink Water, we build our own, right? So, our own auth with our hacked together JWT. A jut. Okay. Planning items. Yeah, I see it. That actually makes more sense, doesn't it? To do it in the post. Planning item. Identify grid / batchments. Well, there you go. They did a few simplification methods to make auth easier in non-Blazor apps. Okay. Blazor no IDC does appear complicated. Not going to go there. Okay, we need to allow file uploads. And then handle, okay. Handle async. If I'm finally ready to stream again. I was updating my auth server. It actually returns error messages in JSON. I'm never using Razor and web APIs together. I don't think I think there's just some combinations I've just completely avoided because they've just never seen. I haven't used Razor pages that I know of. I mean, Blazor I rarely use, but I was also lucky early on in my career. I avoided web forms for the most part as well. I mean, mainly because every time someone gave me web forms to look at, all they do is me complaining about it. But send no content async. I'm not copying and pasting this in because I kind of prefer to read through it and write it out as I go. So, file. So, what's the point in sending in the request? So, if I have my request, what is the point if I never use the request? If you basically just hijack the whole rendering of all on .NET. Oh. So that request is completely unused. I wonder if I need that on there. I think they have a consolidated Blazor auth example, but it's in a GitHub examples directory. Not for .NET, I believe there were still two projects. So actually this worked, even though identifier came from I didn't need the route or anything. So I don't need any of this. Okay. So my thought is that request.files.count.any. So when I add a new endpoint in here, by the way, I need to do a little bit more. It's a bit more involved because of the API gateway. Open an Explorer. So I have all sort of configuration here. So when I post to planning items, that's great. Requirements, I post to requirements. Memory serves, I've got to put these further down because it will hit the wrong route. So here I need something similar. It's just going to be attachments. Attachments. Up there. I just looked at it last week. It might have been in an experimentations report. It does have a complicated auth dance between the two layers. For clarification, Blaze's whole wording has been consolidating server and client into a single app. The OIDC flow is still separate still. That's, I've gone through it with one line a lot. Because, it's not I don't like Blazor, it's just that Blazor's melding of server and client, and it kind of leaves me a little confused. So yeah, also configuration. So what I'm doing is I'm going pasting that configuration in there so that I can get to attachments. So that will reload. So that will load when I load the endpoints, and now that's available to me. So I can go to API planning items, ID attachments. I'll get to where I need to be. Also avoids having the actual clients have the word API in them. They can just be planning items, and they can worry about their own thing. So I can use completely different routes there as long as I map things. Planning item identifier GUID. So if I run this, actually I need to stop that again. .NET Evolution Discord, what's that? Allow anonymous. I need to make sure I'm not trying to auth this to begin with. It will be nice once they figure that out without the need of a template with 15 extra files to just auth. It's sounding very intimidating. Okay. This guy. No, I keep my Discord to a manageable number. If I can't get through my social media now, I tend to prune. Uh-oh. 1 second. Good to know. I know what that is. Let's test logins. I like the merge because it feels similar to Next. Uh-oh. .NET Evolution Discord has been in Microsoft devs who work on .NET. I asked about OIDC in there, and they said it's in the plans, but not in .NET. Ugh. So my insomnia has logged out. And I do not have access to the passphrase. So I can see my collections, but I can't get into my collections. Awesome. Because it encrypts the collections. Which is good, I suppose. But I had to have noted the passphrase down. Working in Razor Pages made me want to rip it out and read it. Iron Blazer, it's so wordy. Oh. Come on. I've got this somewhere. I'm looking through my documents of things like, all I'm getting is my ideas on videos and stuff that I want to make. Fun. Okay, well, make us that idea. So can I test file upload? Test file upload, HTTP. Okay. You can't do a file upload in the HTTP stuff. Well, so there's a Frankenstein of Razor Pages, API controls, and Blazor. I should just bite the bullet and do it. Made for stream. I think if you're building something that you want to have work for the future, and it's going to cause pain, and you have the time, it's definitely worth considering. Well, it's causing pain. Like if you don't have if you've got to get to something right now, and you can justify leaving it till later, then I can imagine it's okay to do. But okay, I can do it. HTTP request, post. I'm going to test this now. So this is going to go to HTTPS localhost 7285. I'm just typing in stuff on the other screen. So I'm just trying to figure out API planning items. So I need a planning item to upload it to. Planning items view. We'll go with that one. It's as good as any. That. Attachments. So now I need to do multi-part form. Add. Oh, here we go. I can do it. So this is going to be called files. It's also intertwined with doing a identity server, so it probably won't be so straightforward to just migrate. It'll have to be a rewrite. A rewrite might be able to, might allow you to reflect on past design decisions. There is the benefit of that. You might get to learn some things along the way. Is that the right way to do the array? I think it is. File, choose a file. Desktop, new text file, test me. This is some content to verify. Send. Couldn't connect to server. Oh, because I'm not. I don't need that. And I think I can do that. 7162, sorry. I should know that by now, considering that's the one I'm. So, because I'm not using the API gateway, I can just load up here. True, I have a lot of reflection. It's also an ability to do this rewrite. I mean. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we did get files. So our request has our GUID, so as our planning item identifier, as our file, which is a form file, which has text plain test me.txt. Okay, there we go. So we do have an upload. So let's go back to fast endpoints. Now, again, what I want to do here is I don't want the endpoint to be doing the file uploading, right? I want this to be offloaded to a handler so that I can specifically say, you've got a stream, upload a file to the right provider. I don't want to inject all the things I need into this point because that's not the way I like to design it. So what they do in this example, by the way, is they do this. So bar file equals request.files first. And then that's that. And then that's going to be file.name, file.length, and I don't know why we can't do file.content type. So if we run that again and try it, what we should see is Insomnia should now show the file, I think. It should show the contents of the file. This is some content to verify. Okay, so we're pulling the file, we're reading the file, that's great. This is where it gets a bit scary because I'm not used to showing what is it? Portal.azure.com. So storage wise, ultimately what I want to do is I want to say, okay, well, how do I want to design this? Hmm. Okay, discard. Right now, I'm going to discard the idea of an account specifically having their own storage accounts, right? So a tenant should not have their own storage accounts. That's a whole different challenge. That can come much later. Right now, I just need to be able to say, can I upload it to Azure? Can I upload it to AWS? Can I just switch them out? So if I find one's more expensive or one's cheaper or one's easier to use, then I could switch them around. So I want to abstract that ultimately. But right now, all I need to do is upload this file to say Azure. I'm worried about putting the libraries in the wrong place for what this is. That's what's concerning me right this second. And this does get into a world of, okay, well, is this application, does the application gain an understanding of Azure, or is there an interface that inject, and then there is a separate piece that adds in the file uploaders, etc. Right? So there's like, this just receives an interface to file provider or whatever, and it gets that. So if I go and just stuff it in, the risk there is I could end up with a load of libraries in here that I don't really want in here. So uploading to Azure blob storage. Memory serves, this is really simple. So create a service client. Default Azure credential. Upload a blob from the local. So again, if I save it in local storage, I could take a stream straight through. Create free storage accounts. So let's go storage accounts. Create a storage account. Resource group. Create new. Liquid Sky storage. Storage account name. Liquid Sky. There you go. Liquid Sky attached. I'm doing this off screen because I don't want to risk showing something that I'm going to regret. Showing Azure stuff on screen during stream is something that I'm not comfortable with because I don't do it very often. Cloud stuff in general is something I want to. Okay, So I'm going to do LRS, lowest cost option with basic protection against server rack and drive failures, recommended for non-critical scenarios. Locally redundant storage is perfectly fine for this. I'm not going in premium. So I'm creating a resource group. I'm creating a storage account name. So I can probably show this on screen. I don't think there's anything particularly hidden. So I'm creating a storage account. Require secure, and I'm learning this is something I've not done before. I've normally had this set up for me and just been given the information to connect to. So forgive my fumbling. The secure transfer option enhances the security of your storage account by only allowing REST API operations on the storage account using HTTPS. Yeah, that's fine. Adamos, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome in. Allow enabling anonymous access on individual containers. I don't want anonymous access. That would be terrible. So again, one of the things I do have to consider is tenancy. When I'm uploading a file, I'm going to have to create some sort of structure to the file. If memory serves, I only did stuff for AWS. There is a folder structure possible, but then naming the file, if everything's a GUID, that's fine. Default to Microsoft Entra authorization in the Azure portal. Minimum TLS 1.2, permit scope for copy operations. No, I'm not going to mess around with Entra. I do not understand enough. Complemented data enables file and directory semantics, accelerates big data analytics workload, and enables access controllers. Yes, I do want hierarchical namespace because I do want to create a tenancy. Blob and data lake endpoints are provisioned by default. Enable SFTP, do not want SFTP. NFS, no. Cross-tenant replication, don't care. Access tier, optimized for frequent access, cool. How slow is slow? I'll leave it at hot. We're not doing large files right this second. I'm not worried about that. Again, this is stuff I can configure later as well. I can set this up. I'm just doing this now because I want to get it done and prove that it can be done. I obviously can get the file. I'm not worried about saving that to disk. I've got the file and the contents. You can connect to your storage account either publicly via public IP address or service endpoints, or privately using a private endpoint. Enable soft delete, containers, file shares, encryption types. I don't need tags. There's not that many things in the account. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to move this back off screen just in case as I complete it does anything. Okay, so that's deploying. So now we get to learn. So I'm going to do something here. Okay, that's created. So one of the things that concerns me with doing this sort of stuff is when I'm building the application, putting dependencies on things like Azure libraries and stuff into my main application creates a problem in that if they get updated or there's some sort of challenge to updating them, I could end up with all manner of problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a planning infrastructure Azure. library, .NET 8. And what that'll allow me to do is keep all the Azure dependencies in there. Infrastructure, application can reference infrastructure, right? Yeah, because no, it can't. No, application can't. I'm wondering where so this would be Azure Blob Provider, something like that. I need to create a contract that can be injected that is common to if I create an AWS one or create an Azure one, it's going to be a common contract. But here is not the place because this is application does not know about infrastructure, right? It knows about domain. Domain seems really weird, but so I have contracts in domain. So again, I could do storage provider, right? And this will return right now I don't need to worry about anything else, right? So upload file for that's interesting. So then this can know about domain, I believe. Yeah, domain can be infrastructure can know about domain, application can know about domain, but applications can't know about infrastructure directly. So because it's a separate concern. So this becomes an storage provider. And then I implement that one. And then this would be my Azure specific thing. Then from this perspective, from here, my attachments, I'm going to inject an storage provider. Ultimately, I'm going to abstract this even further because I'm going to move. This isn't going to do, because it's going to need to do more. It's going to add a record to a table. It's going to record that I have that so that when I load into the screen, I can show that I've got attachments. But right now, I don't want to go and say, hey, have I got any attachments to this? I'll go to Azure, query the list of attachments, and show them on screen. That would be bad. Return task, complete task. So in here, I'm essentially going to do await provider.upload file async, and that's going to be file.open read stream, file.name, file length, file content type, and CT. And that would, in theory, work, right? But now I could actually do for each file in request.file as well. Nope, you don't like that one, do you? Return type is void. Ah, interesting. Oh no. Okay. I thought domain references nothing. Infrastructure references domain, and application does both. I could be wrong. Domain doesn't have. It has shared kernel. Infrastructure references domain. Yeah. Domain and shared kernel. An application. I don't have a. Well, that's a blurry one, right? This is the challenge. If I make the link once, I've broken the link forever, right? Bring up the image. So, no, not that one. Infrastructure shouldn't touch domain. Application knows about infrastructure, application, infrastructure domain, application domain, web UI, infrastructure, web UI, application. So infrastructure can reference application. No, application can know about infrastructure. That's what the arrows mean. No. I'm completely confusing myself with the arrows versus the understanding. Application can know about domain. Infrastructure can know about domain. So infrastructure by this can know about application. Developer knows nothing. That's what the arrows mean. Good morning, Deflux. How you doing? Just in time. So we're tinkering with right this second and trying to. I have a meeting in 3 minutes. Nice, fun, good start to your day. So I don't think I'm going to get to the actual implementation here, am I? I've got close, but so I deployed the storage. I've got the storage in place on Azure. Now I'm going to learn more about how do I authenticate to that. How do I upload a file? These are things that I've not done. Like I said, I actually haven't done Azure before. But this will allow me to do. Okay. Azure storage blobs. When do you hear back about your interview? Thoughts, by the way. So one thing to note is, by the way, that I'm not afraid to. So not sure I didn't ask. Okay. Well, best of luck with that. The just because I've tagged on this doesn't mean this isn't infrastructure, right? Infrastructure can. There's nothing saying infrastructure can't consist of many libraries. There's nothing saying application couldn't actually consist of many libraries either. Nice. No worries, Mojo. Sorry I didn't get to the point. That conversation part at the beginning is something that I think is really important. So it's like I was procrastinating a little bit, but if I get anything before then, I will share as well, because I may be able to continue a little bit more after stream. But yeah, have a great day, Mojo. So I'm gonna laugh if I can get in before then. Like, so I've been performing well. Okay, well, I'm quitting. Yeah. I wonder, is it possible to extend the DB set viewer? Would be cool, but probably not a thing. I wonder, is it possible to extend a DB set? DB set viewer. DB set is pretty. I don't think it's extensible at all. What do you mean extend? Afternoon, another meeting though. Mr. Jones, hello, how you doing? Have fun in your meeting. Thank you for stopping on in. Create a client object. So here, get blob service client, comes register service client for dependency .NET app. For example, it'd make a method on my, just curious. Unfortunately, Temptic, you are not a VIP yet and not a sub, so you do not get. It thinks that's a link. I learned recently you can extend certain classes. Extend. So in .NET 8, as it stands, extension methods are a thing. So you can create, so I do it for things like, where's the best one? I do it for my user. So basically when I inject the claims principal, I can add behavior to it by using an extension method, right? So this allows me in my endpoints, say, I can say get tenant identifier. So it's on my user object. It looks like it's an extension of my claims principal, but it's actually an extension method, right? Which has that behavior wrapped up. So you can just do that with an extension. So that behaves. So if you actually did want to do an extension of DB set viewer, you could potentially do public static. Let's say it's calculate something, right? Calculating get total viewers. This DB set viewer viewers. Give it tenant identifier. Say you could do something like that. Which would extend that DB set in that way. So you'd have a new method available when you had that specific DB set. The way my code works, that would never work, but that is a possibility. With .NET 9, you do have type extensions, which has a lot more power. I mean, I can easily just make a method in my service that finds a viewer by Twitch ID, but I would possibly use it outside of that service as well. Ads. Ugh. Should get turbo instead of 6 subs. Turbo is worthwhile if you're in a lot of streams that you want to subscribe to, but you know it's expensive. I get it. It's worth having turbo for certain. Blob container client, create a blob container client. No, wrong window. Singleton. Registering the client object. Okay. So welcome back. So the problem with doing that is you kind of create if it's a common behavior that you constantly want, yeah, I would say, you know, find viewer by Twitch ID. You could create an extension method that returns an iCreatable even and say public depending on where you put it, poet static, iQueryable, viewer. Actually, it would be that, wouldn't it? Viewer by Twitch ID. Because then the way you call that is if you had your context.viewers. Oh, right. Okay, I think find might. I don't think find would be representative because you're not trying to find it. You've got a Twitch ID. You either have the user or you don't. It's a single. It's a first to default essentially. So, I think I reserve find for find by username maybe where the usernames are partial. Oh look. Add singleton. That needs to be static. Yeah. So I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to get this to a good point. I apologize. Add Azure Blob Provider services dot add singleton. Blob client. Then this needs to do provider goes to but what's Blob? Blob service client. Why do I create a blob? Oh, blob service client. There we go. Okay, so services that add singleton blob service client. Provider goes to return new blob service client. So this is going to take, yeah, new URI, and then credentials are going to be the challenging part. New Azure SaaS credential, no. Default Azure credential. Yeah, that's the challenge. So that's that. And then in here, I would do the same thing. Okay, so what I need to get towards is being able to get the provider. I need to figure out to get the credentials first and the URL that I have. So I do have the storage, the resource groups configured. I have to figure out how I refer to it publicly, whether I can, how that works. Get the credentials figured out. Maybe I have to add a user. I don't know. Again, I don't know. From past experience with AWS, I've say we've had a kind of identity file stored locally. But again, don't know the right way of doing that, so I got to learn a bit there. But then once the blob provider's there, it should just be a case of injecting blob client in here, and then basically something like that. Well, I mean, blob container client. Okay, and then that code. So we got that. inject the container client. We get that, and no worries, Temtic. Var local file bar equals I get it. Doesn't matter. But let's just do it that way for right now. Actually, we can just upload. Got the stream. It might come down to that. I mean, this is a bit more involved because obviously I've got to build a tenant name. I've got to do all sorts of things in there. Sorry for the mic bump there. I've got to build other things in there, but this should be roughly what I'm aiming for. So again, when it gets to AWS, I'll have AWS as an extra thing. And the reason I'm breaking these out is because this might not be the only thing I rely upon for Azure, right? It might not be the only thing I rely on AWS. As I create different providers for the different cloud services, maybe there are specifics there that I want to deal with. And if I tie them into my main application code, if I put them in here, then I end up with a jumble of dependencies, and my application now takes a dependency on those NuGet packages. So if there's a problem with updating those NuGet packages, or there's some conflicts in there, my application it's a reason for change, right? My application has no reason for change, shouldn't have a reason for change on many external dependencies. I have a few in here in terms of Mediator, Ardalis, and my own abstractions around Kafka. So even Kafka is abstracted away from the actual application. So there is some Kafka behavior in there, but not a lot. So the application itself is pretty simple, and it does its job, right? Everything's through interfaces, so between domain and infrastructure is kind of peeled out. But there we go. Unfortunately, I do have to end. So if you've been watching and you're interested in following along with more of this, I will be back at it tomorrow. I stream every day of the week, Monday to Friday, and I'm always open for discussion on this stuff as well. It's not just a one-way stream. Again, I'm learning here. There's some things I'm going to get stuck on. I'll try and get more done off stream today. And so hopefully tomorrow we're coming back and doing the UI for this, where we'll be adding attachments in here and a dialogue with some file uploads. And then when we hit upload, the file should upload and everything should just work. Doing it this way as well, we can create a local version as well, so we can test and we can develop without having hard connections to cloud providers, and just configure that out. And there we go. So that'll be me today. I'm going to take you over to Fritz is working on Signal Art, Aspire, and breaking up a monolith. I'm going to drop you in there because I need to go and get ready. Actually, this saves me quite some code. I just didn't know how far this extension could go, but this is a great feature for me to use. Yeah, look up extension types coming in .NET 9. It advances these quite a way. So yeah, so I'm going to raid into Fritz. He is currently starting up, but I got to go. So I'll drop you in there. Saves repetition. Yeah. Extension types are a pretty powerful feature as well, coming soon, and could change a lot of things. But I will be back tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time. Take care and have a great rest of your day. And there is a Discord if anyone needs to reach out on that. Take care all. Bye.